Live streaming is on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Last week, as I mentioned earlier, we have already learned about chapter 12. I'm pleased to give you presentation related to chapter 13 of Oliver Twist. The title of chapter 13 is called The End of the Game. The character, there are 9 characters. Number 1, Sight. Number 2, Mr. Brownlow. Number 3, Mr. Mang. Number 4, Fagin. Number 5, Nose. 6, Badwin. Number 7, Charlie. Number 8, Dr. Losman. And number 9, Toppy. The story scene or the story place in this chapter, there are 7 places that the writer introduced to us. Number 1, London. Number 2, Gateshead. Number 3, Hampstead. Number 4, Hutton. Number 5, Paris. Number 6, Italy. Number 9, Rotherhithe. Story problem. The writer provoked around 4 problems. Number 1, after killing Nancy, Sai seemed to be afraid of himself. Restlessly, Sai decided to leave the room, walking and running north toward Highgate, then on to Hampstead. On the open land of Hampstead Hill, away from people and houses, he found a pleasant field where he could sleep without being disturbed. After arriving in Hampstead for a short time, Sai felt confused. Once wanted to go back to London, once wanted to go to North. Eventually, he felt hungry and changed direction toward Hendon. At last, he turned to north again and set off to a village just outside London. Number 2. Sai felt haunted as he tried to find another place to hide. He lay down, unable to sleep, his mind filled with visions of the dead girl. Soon he heard screams in the distance and saw a building on fire and ran into the crowds of men and women who were putting out the fire. Participating in the firefighting that night made him forget his fears for all night. In the morning, his fear returned and more terrifying than ever. In desperation, he decided to go back to London. Number 3. Fearing that he might be found because people recognize his dog, Sai decided to kill his dog. But his dog, realizing that the owner wanted to kill him, ran away. The fourth, Mang met Mr. Brownlow, his father's oldest friend. Mr. Brownlow then told Mang about his father's history. Mr. Brownlow also told Mang about Oliver's history as he rescued Oliver from a miserable life. And in particular, he observes that when Oliver was healed, Oliver looked like a woman in the photo hanging on the wall of his house. What Mr. Brownlow said to Mang in order to reveal the truth and motivate Mang to tell the truth and acknowledge the truth about the brotherhood between Mang and Oliver, who have the same father but different mothers. For Mang, he initially tried to evade the truth and refused to admit the truth, but Mr. Brownlow tried to threaten and persuade. Finally, Mang agreed to sign a confess in front of witnesses. How about story solution? Number 1, Fagin and North were caught by the police. Number 2, signs of slipping, falling from the roof with a rope tied one end to his neck and the other end tied to a chimney. His dog died after jumping from the roof. This is the end of chapter 13. Chapter 14. The title is The End of the Mystery. The character: Oliver, number 1. Number 2, Mr. Brownlow. Number 3, Dr. Losberne. Number 4, Mrs. Maylie. Number 5, Rose. Number 6, Mang. Number 7, Fagin. Number 8, Charles. Beth. Number 9, Knowles. Story scene. Number 1, Oliver Place of Birth. Number 2, Baby Farm. Number 3, Mr. Silverberry's house. Number 4, Workhouse. Number 5, hotel in town. Number 6, well. About the story problem. Oliver traveled with Mr. Brownlow, Dr. Losberne, Mrs. Maylie, and Rose back to his birthplace. They then left Oliver's birthplace to continue their journey to the town. Along the way, Oliver pointed out some places he had lived as a teenager. Finally, they arrived at a big hotel where Mr. Brownlow, Dr. Losberne, brought Mang into the hotel room to meet Oliver. Number 2, Mr. Brownlow forced Mang to sign the papers and tell Oliver what had happened. Solution: after listening to Mang's account, they learned the truth that Mang was Oliver's half-brother and Rose was Oliver's aunt. Number 2, Fagin was hanged in public on Monday morning. Number 3, Rose married Harry Maylie. Mrs. Maylie went to live with them. Number 4, Mr. Brownlow adopted Oliver as his son. Number 5, Mang became ill and died in prison. Number 6, Charles Beth lived honestly as a farmer. Nose Claypole became employed as an informer for the police. Number 8, Mr. and Mrs. Bumble became poorer and poorer and lived in the workhouse. This is the end of chapter 14. Everyone, I also would like to give you the summary of the Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist is a story of a young orphan, Oliver, and his attempt to stay good in a society that refuses to help. Oliver is born in a workhouse to a mother not known to anyone in the town. She died right after giving birth to him, and he sent to the parochial orphanage, where he and the other orphans are treated terribly and fed very little. When he turned 9, he is sent to the workhouse, where again he and the others are treated badly and practically starved. The other boy, unable to stand their hunger and any longer, decide to draw straw to choose who will have to go up and ask for more food. Oliver loses. On the appointed day, after finishing his first serving of gruel, he goes up and asks for more. Bumble, Mr. Bumble, the big doll, and the board are outraged and decide they must get rid of Oliver, apprenticing him to a parochial undertaker, Mr. Suberbury. It is not great there either, and after an attack on his mother memory, Oliver ran away. Oliver walked toward London. When he is close, he is so weak, and he can barely continue and meets another boy named Jack Dawkins or the artful Dodger. The Dodger tells Oliver he can come with him to a place where a gentleman will give him a place to sleep and food for no rent. Oliver follows, and the Dodger takes him to an apartment in London where he meets Fagin, the aforementioned gentleman, and Oliver is offered a place to stay. Oliver eventually learns that Fagin's boys are all pickpockets and thieves, but not until he is wrongfully accused of their crimes of stealing an old gentleman's handkerchief. He is arrested, but the bookseller comes just in time to the court and says that he saw that Oliver did not do it. The gentleman whose handkerchief was taken, Mr. Brownlow, feels bad for Oliver and takes him in. Oliver is very happy with Mr. Brownlow, but Fagin and his co-conspirator are not happy to have lost Oliver, who may give away their hiding place. So, one day, when Mr. Brownlow entrusts Oliver to return some books to the bookseller for him, Nancy spots Oliver and kidnaps him, taking him back to Fagin. Oliver is forced to go to a house-breaking incursion with the intimidating Bearside. At gunpoint, Oliver enters the house with the plan to wax those within, but before he can, he is shot by one of the servants. Cy and his partner escape, leaving Oliver in a ditch. The next morning, Oliver makes it back to the house where the kind owner, Mrs. Maylie, and her beautiful niece, Rose, decide to protect him from the police and nurse him back to health. Oliver slowly recovers and is extremely happy and grateful to be with such kind and generous people, who in turn are ecstatic to find that Oliver is such a good-natured boy. When he is well enough, they take him to see Mr. Brownlow, but they find his house empty. He has moved to West Indies. Meanwhile, Fagin and his mysterious partner Mang have not given up on finding Oliver, and one day Oliver wakened from a nightmare to find them staring at him through his window. He raised the alarm, but they escaped. Nancy, overhearing Fagin and Mang, decides that she must go to Rose to tell her what she knows. She does so, telling Rose that Mang is Oliver's half-brother, who has been trying to destroy Oliver so that he can keep his whole inheritance, but that she will not betray Fagin and Sykes. Rose tells Mr. Brownlow, who tells Oliver's other caretaker, and they decide that they must meet Nancy again to find out how to find Mang. They meet her on London Bridge at a prearranged time, but Fagin has become suspicious and has sent his new boy, Nose Claypole, to spy on Nancy. Nancy tells Rose and Mr. Brownlow how to find Mang, but still refuses to betray Fagin and Sykes, or to go with them. Nose reports everything to Fagin, who tells Sykes, knowing full well that Sykes will kill Nancy. He does. Mr. Brownlow has in the meantime found Mang, who finally admits everything and he has done, and the true case of Oliver bursts. Sykes is on the run, but all of London is in the uproar, and he eventually hangs himself accidentally in falling off a roof. While trying to escape from the mob surrounding him, Fagin is arrested and tried, and after a visit from Oliver is executed. Oliver, Mr. Brownlow, and Miley end up living in peace and comfort in a small village in English country. Thank you.